All right, so I told you I would give you some kind of modeling to show you how to actively read today during our lesson one of active reading. So this is a portion of what you were handed, and you and your partner are sitting there right now at your desk saying, all right, so what are we going to be doing here? So the thing I want you to think about is first, I'm going to be reading each section, and I want you to take note of these little notes here. These are notes from a student. Now, I don't know if I think they're particularly helpful for me. Doesn't tell me what that student is thinking. So I want yours to be a little bit better. So I'll give you examples of what I mean. I'm going to read out loud, and I'm going to think out loud as well. And as I think out loud, I will have a pen or a pencil, and I would write my thinking here in each section. So what I would like you to do is you and your partner are going to be reading each paragraph. So let's say this is your first paragraph here, and you read it out loud, you talk about it, and then you write your thinking on the margins. So you write your own thinking on your own packet here. You do that, and your partner does the same. So you can work together, you can think together, but you're writing your thoughts on your margins on your own for each paragraph. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get started here. My father was a master storyteller. He could tell a fine old story that made me hold my sides with rolling laughter and sent happy tears down my cheeks. Or a story of stark reality. That made me shiver and be grateful for my own warm, secure surroundings. He could tell stories of beauty and grace, stories of gentle dreams, and paint them as vividly as any picture with splashes of character and dialogue. His memory detailed every event of 10 or 40 years or more before, just as if it had happened yesterday. So I'm reading it out loud. I might want to reread it again if I didn't quite understand what I was reading. And then what I want to do is I want to think about what let me just back up here. I want to just sit back and think about what would I add to that slide. How would what would my thinking be? So because I don't have the ability to type right here, all right, if I had a pencil, I would write something like this with a complete sentence. I want your complete sentences. What does stark reality mean? Question mark. I would write right here. Stark reality. All right. And I would try to use the clues in this section to help me, or my background knowledge to help me. As I was reading this, my thoughts were really connecting to my own father, who is a master storyteller. And I remember when I was young, he would sit down and give us some bedtime stories that made me feel like I was right there. And many of his stories had lessons in them. And I still remember those stories. And so I can connect with Mildred Taylor, the author, and her relationship with her dad, and her dad being a master storyteller. So I might write that down. My dad also was a master storyteller and told me many stories at bedtime, and I'd write this in the background. Let's get going on the next section. Remember, for each paragraph you and your partner read, I want you to make sure you're reading it together, thinking together, coming up with questions together, and then writing your own responses, because I want to be able to read your mind. Here's an example of a child's Taylor's background. I'm not quite sure what that means. I don't consider that to be a really good reading response. So here's an example of what I would want you to do. By the fireside in a northern home, or in the South where I was born, now that gives me information about the author right there, I learned a history not then written in books, but one passed from generation to generation on the steps of moonlit porches and beside dying fires in one-room houses. A history of great-great-great-grandparents, and of slavery, and of the days following slavery, of those who lived still not free, yet who would not let their spirits be enslaved. From my father, the storyteller, I learned to respect the past and to respect my own heritage and myself. From my father, the man, I learned even more, for he was endowed with a special grace that made him tower above other men. He was warm and steadfast, a man whose principles would not bend, and he had within him a rare, let me see if I can, sorry about that, guys. He had with him a rare, a rare strength that sustained him, not only my sisters and me and all the family, but all those who sought his advice and leaned upon him. All right, so this section here tells me quite a bit about this author and what I'm ready to read. And so I'm going to talk to my partner, and I probably would share with my partner something like, wow, I can tell that this, I'm predicting based on this sentence here, that the author had great grandparents of slavery, right? So I'm guessing that she's African American. So I might write that down. And that I'm guessing that she's talking about the stories here of the past that the father told, that they weren't written down because it was probably not accepted to write those stories down about slavery back in those days, because it was a world basically ruled by whites, and anyone that would write history that was actually accurate, it was not accepted. So I might write that down. I'm reading the sentence from my father, the storyteller. I learned to respect the past, to respect my own heritage and myself. That's a very important sentence to me. I might write down that I'm sure that her father was probably the only source of real, true history that she was able to read, seeing that the history books would not accurately portray the slavery time period back in those days. So I might write that down. It sounds to me like her father is an amazing man, and that even though in this sentence it talks about how he towered over other people, and I don't think she meant that he was tall. So I might write that down. I know that she's not talking about his height in terms of how tall he is over other people. I think she's really referring to that he is such a principled, wonderful man, that he was taller in theory and morals and all that to other people. So I might write all these things down here. Anything I was confused about, I might add, is she writing from the South? Does she live in the South? And I might reread that to find out. So this is a model of how I want you to read this section with your partner. And I can't wait to see your thinking. Make sure you put your name and date on your paper, and make sure you put what block you're on, block A, block B, or block C. All right, good luck, and I know you're going to do a great job.